Welcome to the Zachrilege Cast podcast YouTube video interview program that features me talking to some of the best and brightest in the atheist / secular / awesome community. This is episode number 203. I recorded this interview on October 10th, 2019. Thanks to Amy with an I for entirely ruining my show's premise and telling me that Secular Soup broke up before I could get them to break up. Actually, if my show was 100% about stories that happen at atheist conferences, I'd be much happier. Check out the Unbroken Up show. I guess they're staying together for the children. I think about atheist leaders who don't get enough credit for their work and are tireless promoters of non-belief and real humanism. Number one draft pick would be Mandisa Latifah Thomas. She runs Black Non-Believers, recently co-hosted and organized the Women of Color Beyond Belief conference. There will be a sequel. If you're tired of getting the nonsense in our community, just listen to Mandisa talk. Oh, I guess that's what I did. Let's start the conversation.
All I did was tell the truth.
Of course you did, but there's the truth and the truth.
Okay, I should probably hit the button. Welcome back to the Zachrilege Cast. Mandisa Thomas, you are back on the show. It's only been like 46 episodes, and we do technically live in the same city, so, you know, this is when we see each other.
Yes.
So how's it going tonight?
It is going very well. It's been a very busy year and a very busy week of follow-up out of color and upcoming events and future dates, and so just which has been amazing.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to top the interview you did with Aaron Ra, Lalandra Ra, and their parrot, but we'll do our best. So in your history of being interviewed, because you've done a few of these, was that the first time a parrot interviewed you? See, you knew the answer.
It's the first time I have been parroted. That was hilarious. But, I definitely appreciate Aaron and Lalandra for the interview, as well as their appearance and their assistance at the conference. Lalandra was one of our speakers, and Aaron, and it was great to have them at the event without the parrot, but yes.
Yeah, the parrot needs a separate rider, no green M&Ms, that sort of thing. So how did you get the idea to, because you've been in a lot of conferences, obviously, but to kind of organize a Women of Color Beyond Belief conference that happened last week in Chicago. And if you missed out, well, there might be hope for you in the future, but we'll get there.
Yeah. So the concept came out after just talking with Sakivu Hutchinson, who was one of my co-organizers. We were having a conversation one day last year. The three of us, along with two other women, Candace Gorham and Liz Ross, were featured in a Humanist magazine about 5 years. August edition of the Human. Once that viewed, we had all been involved in our separate events before. Black Non-Believers actually co-sponsored and co-facilitated in a team, and so we've developed this working relationship through some trials and tribulations, but once this issue dropped, we were having a conversation, and Sakivu said she wanted to really start working on and of putting on events, especially Black Non-Believers, where we had previously co-facilitated the Blackout Secular Rally in 2013. We had did our 5th anniversary celebration. We had started doing our annual cruise convention, as well as being involved in different. Let's go for it, because in the past 8 years that I have been active with Black Non-Believers as well as other organizations, we've all had the pleasure and an honor to engage a few women of color in the movement, not just as participants, as organizers, such. And it's important for us to have this event where you, from the people who are doing the work, the women whom we've engaged, and we know they're doing work, but they don't, and they deserve. And it was up to us to make sure that we brought as many of them as possible. Some who have never met each other, before this, who have known each other for a while, and they have developed really good, close. And it was just good for us to all be in this space where people saw and they felt the magnitude of what was really crucial to this movement. And to have the ability and the opportunity to voices and amplify the work that we do was important. There are more that weren't even featured this time around. And so it just became crucial and we really made it happen. And that's exactly what we did.
Well, how did you pick the time for the conference and then the location going to Chicago?
Yeah, so I'll start with the location first. Chicago, a point, for lack of a better, we actually held it at the Marriott Chicago Midway, near Midway Airport. So Chicago is a very big city, very from South, East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, etc. So it was a very, very good location for us to have it, and the dates give enough time for people their schedules for the event at the time chose it, availability with location, and of course again our schedules. And so Chicago, we wanted to do it where only cold, so that just kind of worked out. It was in the 60s last weekend, and so it wasn't terrible. There was change climate for many of us who are coming. There was 90-degree weather that past weekend. That was a good change. And so as we started that, it's they chose those dates, and those will be dates in the future.
Is it like people say about wedding planning? You have to do it a year in advance. I mean, just to have a conference work out.
Pretty much. Organizing conferences and can very much be and I can't say that it was frustrations, especially when it's to the date, but we definitely got everything together. As with most events, there are always things that come up, but I think we handled them quite well and quite professionally, as I always try to do. These types of events definitely have to at least 6 months to a year out, and that's the time frame that I like to give, especially for events like this together. Now that there's a foundation that has been set already to the point where we have our rhythm, and that it won't be as much but of course there are always things that we can improve upon, and we will. But now that we have this set in stone and it went over very well, this time around should be much easier. And it's all as an organizer. and as an event services manager, at the Centers for Disease Control. So these are the types of things that I'm used to doing, and having put on larger events for the organization. This is within, you prepare for things that, could go south, and you always, you prepare for them to go well, but you prepare for, you hope for the best, prepare for the worst. And that's always been a good rule of thumb in planning these events.
Well, you talked earlier about, giving an opportunity for some speakers that maybe haven't had a chance to talk at atheist, freethinker type conferences, but what was the challenging aspect, and then what was the fun aspect of being able to kind of hand pick your own list of speakers and setting it up and maybe lining up, okay, here's who's going to talk first, who's going to start in the morning to wake people up, and then who needs to come in after lunch, that sort of thing?
Yeah, of course, we started with the 5 Fierce Humanists, who were featured in the Humanist magazine, which was myself, Kivu, Candace, and Liz. So we wanted to start off with, with that as the starting point for this event, as well as our thoughts on why this is important for people to, to support this event, and also the women who were speaking. About being able to put these things together is, knowing that there is a having so many women in this movement, and seeing what they're actually doing, and especially those that are on the ground, that are doing more than just facilitating things online, which is an important part of this movement. However, when you are on the ground and actually engaging people in person and engaging in the activism, this is what we wanted to showcase and spotlight. And there were many of our speakers have different experiences, different areas of expertise, and they can speak to issues that pertain not only to communities of color, but also to the secular community, where some people may not think that they're relevant. And getting to know these women, it was good for us to pick certain topics that we knew could get folks engaged and at certain times of, the conference and the day. And together is always fun for me, because I like topics that are a bit, I like the topics that will be touching to our heart, and amongst the people who can deliver them well. And I know between the three of us and our recommendations, what about where everything should go. I think we put that together very well, to flow with the event and to flow with the schedule that we put out. And it's just a matter of knowing what to just really gauging that. And sometimes it may or may not work, but we usually have a pretty good idea of of the folk there and what they will speak to. So, sometimes I wouldn't say it's magic, but it's strategy.
Well, can you cover what the format was like? So this was a Friday night until, I guess, Sunday afternoon conference?
So it was, and I'm the live stream with Gene, and there's some questions that I see, and it looks, I don't not to, but so the Friday night was the reception. That was the opening, the greeting. And so we saw Sakibu's short White Nights, Black Paradise, which is based on her novel about the Jonestown massacre, with Jim Jones, and it spotlights the number of people of color, Jim Jones down to Guyana, and who lost their lives. Sizable number, particularly of Black men, who followed him down there. and oftentimes we don't get to hear from that. And so it was fascinating to hear that, Sakivu did for the book and for the short film. And so we had the opportunity to watch that. So Saturday, all day, we had, we had the plenary sessions, we had sessions, and by the way, registration included breakfast and lunch and for the conference portion. We also had that Saturday night, the red carpet divas ball. It was so much fun. That was a blast. It was a blast, but and so then Sunday it was a half day of of plenaries and talks. It concluded with the Secure Project, which was facilitated Foundation Beyond Belief, where we packed meals that benefited past communities in this local. And so that ended at about 3:00. So it was a very, very, very exhausting weekend. It was wonderful in the participation. It was wonderful. The enthusiasm was great. And everything we heard, nothing, but overall it was wonderful feedback. And it also helped the location where we held it, that the hotels, the staff loved working with us too, and that was amazing. Because one thing that I like to motivate is my engagement with people, especially people who aren't seen as people who are in a service industry, because that is often who we're dealing with. You're talking about your everyday people, and when we are talking about combating these missions of atheists, humanists, secularists, etc., for one, women of color who are doing this, and that we are receiving it from the community, which is great, and that the attendants who is putting on the event comes out for them. And so I'm happy to say that we have developed these relationships with a number of people that would encourage them to attend these events. So it was, like I said, it was a productive weekend, and I'm not even sure if I got some amount of sleep yet, but I'm working through that part.
Yeah, I bet. That's the thing. Like, I have a vacation coming up, but it's a very active vacation. I know I'm going to need recovery time after the fact. Well, how important was it for you to get kind of a service project, and how were you able to kind of connect with the local Chicago community through Foundation Beyond Belief, which I think aren't they based out of Atlanta? But they are around the country, right?
Foundation Beyond Belief got started in Atlanta by Dale McGowan, but it's now based in Houston, Texas. Okay. So one of my colleagues in the movie suggested this project. It had been done previously at the American Atheist Convention, and it was also done this year, as well as other conferences. I spoke in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania in 2015, where they pretty much did the same project. And so, in keeping with the goal of the mission of the conference, which was to highlight the voices of people of color, women of color in particular, this just went along very well. It coincided very well with our mission. So now we talk about what the work and what needs to be done. We actually did it, and so it went hand in hand. And it definitely speaks to our mission as an organization and what we try to do, and people to engage again and take action as much as they can, whether it is social, whether it is in service, whether it is in other forms of activism. And so it really became important, and it became important for us to show that we were actually, again, participating as organizers and as attendees and working together. Extremely important. Now, Foundation Beyond Belief did take the part of the event because you didn't have to be a participant in the conference itself in order to have participated with the service project. However, we encouraged it. So Foundation Beyond Belief, we worked on doing the vetting for the organizations that would benefit from the meals. And it was also, we worked with an organization called Outreach, which is a national organization that participates in organizations doing this type of event, especially at conferences, where people can get more involved than just listening to presentations, which is important, but also actually engaging with the speakers and with the organizees in order to get something like this done. And so we are very, very, very happy coordinated this with Foundation Beyond Belief, especially because it's been daunting for me personally to have to take this additional responsibility in addition to the events itself. But I was very, very glad to have had an active role in putting this together.
Well, I assume there's a certain level of delegation you have to do if you're organizing a conference if you want it to actually happen, because you can't be involved in everything. So that's totally understandable. Now, this might be a tough question because this is like who your favorite kid is or favorite pet or something. But were there, and you could just do kind of elevator pitch type for speakers, but were there speakers and topics that kind of stood out over the 3 days that were things that you thought people needed to hear? I mean, probably all of them, but do your best.
Yeah, so I will say that one of the most poignant presentations is our co-organizers for our Detroit affiliate of BlackNonbelieversInc. And she did a presentation on surviving domestic abuse without faith in God. And this is often an area that affects women. And we contend that there are, a number of men who experience domestic abuse and violence as well. However, it was important for us to, and she threw in some really good statistics too, which was great. Thing that we encourage for us to not, it's the experiences are important, but as a community, the information is vital. And to see the way and her delivery of it, it was extremely, it was, and also, but explain trodden victim that she had overcome these, these horrific circumstances, and she is now much more successful and much more balanced as a result. She spoke of it very matter-of-factly, and she spoke of it in a way that it was very, very, it tugged at your heart. But what really, what made it go over so well was her delivery of it, and it was like she wasn't presenting herself completely as a viper. And so that was very important piece to, very, very important piece to the conference. And so Ingrid Mitchell, and who was Bria's cousin, she's based out of Jacksonville. She spoke about, overcoming the, talking about anxiety and depression, coming out of religion and basically being told this. And that's something that many of us do face, as secularists. And to hear, especially these new voices, never heard from before. And again, women of color, Black women in particular. And that was, and also able to hear Sadia Hamid did our keynote. She's based in London, or no, Gloucester. She's based in England. And she talked about the challenges that ex-Muslim women face, both the Muslim community as well as these, and what these notions are, and the the support, to escape whatever domestic violence as well. So the rest of the time, yes, the events, most of the talks will be available on YouTube very shortly. We are in developing things, and so they will be made available very shortly. And so, yeah, the main themes of the conference was definitely sex positivity and quality, and women's empowerment in general. This was definitely a good takeaway for all people who may not understand sufficiently how women of color in particular, but that we are not just taking this line down. we are actually fighting. We're fighting, doing the work that is necessary, and people needed to meet, and more people need to know that.
I feel like in that answer, you answered my next 3 questions, because I was like, oh, when's this going to be online? So once it is online,
Yeah.
the talks are out, I'll definitely make sure to share that. So for you, is there a point in the conference when you're organizing it where you get to relax, or is that actually not happened yet?
Relax. What's that? Never,
well, maybe
ever
in general.
Never during the conference. I mean, there was a point in time where there would, because things had been so well prepared in advance, slow down a bit and take our time and do some things, which was great. And we didn't have to rush. We didn't feel like we had to rush to do a bunch of things at the last minute, because we had a lot of, we did a lot of preparation in advance. And so that was a good point for me, because I didn't feel like I was hyperventilating the entire time. So of course there were moments where I got a chance to sit down somewhat, of course, trying to make sure everything was going well. I didn't get a chance to see everything, but it was at a point where it flowed so well that we just didn't. But more of the aches and pains was more physical rather than mental and emotional, because again, there was such a good system in place that we didn't have to worry too much, and that just showed I tend to be very, very attentive to time and preparation. That is something that is very important to me in particular, and I know that people could appreciate at the event, whether it's somewhat behind the scenes or even in front. So we got some really good responses about the food. Apparently, the food was great. And that was also a very good response. That was good positive feedback that that food was included during the event, because oftentimes you pay an entry fee for conferences and you still have to pay for food on top of that. And so in trying to keep in mind that we wanted to make things available and attendees, we wanted to do different. And that's one of the reasons why we encouraged sponsorships, and even for people who couldn't attend to this event, for the people who otherwise, or who did, or who couldn't otherwise, do so on their own. And so that was an extremely important. Do we organizers have people who take care of us? Not really. Try to take care of each other as a team. We try to take care of each other as a team. We definitely were like, Bree was, see that lip when things start getting frustrating, or if I start feeling exasperated. Like, are you okay? Are you sure you're okay? To each other, we're checking in on each other to make sure that thing. If there's any help, sure that we're following up with each other to make sure keeping in mind, or like I said, making sure people stay, making sure everything else stays on schedule, and also that we're feeling okay. We definitely did do that with each other.
And Jeannie, it's my show. Stop asking questions. Actually, she always asks questions. I usually just ignore her. So with the guests coming in and saying, "Hey, I'm going to answer your questions," hey, you got to do what you got to do.
Do that.
Well, what was your role during the conference? I mean, obviously, you probably did some speaking as well, but were you kind of overseeing people and just kind of bouncing around between rooms? I don't know if multiple speakers were going on at once, how it was set up at the conference.
So yes, there was a third. So Sakivu was the envision, meaning that I was the one responsible primarily for the logistics of the conference, making sure that everything was on schedule. So for the most part, that was my role. With the venue staff, and we had all of our materials. And Bria provided the exuberance, the excitement for the conference. And so I also, we opened with the 5 Years Humanist segment. I also participated in the secular parenting panel, breakout session. And at the end, we did a roundtable, the three of us, me, Sakivu, and Bria, about is the movement of color, where do we go from here now that this event in particular has taken place? And so there was a roundtable discussion where we got a chance to speak on some things and really reiterate the importance of supporting this event, supporting the women of color, and also supporting our organizations, the organizations that put this on, as well as the organizations that supported and sponsored. And so, yes, so I had about maybe 10 different hats, but I'm used to that. That's going, and that was actually where my comfort zone lies, which I know is kind of odd, but for me, it does do well for me to see and making sure that all is going well. So yes, to answer that question, more wrap up that question. Yes, there were a number of things that I was doing there, that we were doing there, and just to make sure it all went well.
Yeah, there's sometimes this assumption that kind of the minority within a minority is a monolith. So how does a conference like Women of Color Beyond Belief show that the secular community of color is far from a monolith?
Well, for one, the number of speakers that we had there, the presenters that we had there, is showing that even though overall, compared to the community, still vastly underrepresented, our demographic, the fact that we were able to have a day and a half of speakers of women of color really showed that there are a good number of us who are not to the point where, yes, we can sufficiently, we probably could have a day with different topics and different perspectives. Again, that we weren't on organizations for, to amplify our voices, that there was a need for us to put this on specific to show the number of who, like I said, made a difference, who was putting this on. And it's similar at whereas you would only see 1 to 2, maybe 3 now in recent, be a bit more color that you would see sporadically at different events. It's an event that showed a number of tourism. I see. You had the Secular Women Work Conference put on, which is one of my other favorite organizations. They were a sponsor, and shout out to Monette and Stephanie for their support. However, when it comes to the representation of women of color, that was something our organizations, Black Nonbelievers, Black Schedulers, and the Women's Leadership Project needed to. We're not just, like I said, we weren't just waiting for this to happen. We had to make it happen in conjunction with the organizations with.
Well, we can get to Black Nonbelievers. So how many groups are there now?
So Black Nonbelievers in 2011. Time we are up to 15 affiliate. There's those are all us. At right now, we've had a number of people interested in getting involved with the organization and starting in their cities. So are trying to continue to improve on techniques and the best practices with our organizers to make sure that they are sustaining the affiliate groups. Charlotte group, and the group in Charlotte, North Carolina, is one of our most active, in addition to the Washington, D.C. area. And so we have, and all of our affiliates can be found on our web. And we're happy to have facilitated growth as well as developing positions. All of us, it is still volunteer, but we are developing those qualities in folks so that they can be well represented in the community has been extremely important. And one of the missions of Black is to not just amplify our voices and show that we're supporting those who want to participate, but who also want to get involved and remain involved in the community.
Well, let's say somebody lives in a city or town that doesn't have an affiliate. What is the process to reach out and try to get one started?
Yeah, so one of the first things they can do is contact us on our. We do have a Google form that and on Twitter. So there's a Google form that they fill out, and it's it's basically gauging their experience with organizing and where they are where they're located, because even know that there's an affiliate in or near their city, but they may just need to contact the current organizers in order to get involved. And so we have an affiliate, we have an affiliate guideline that we have people review. For the most part, we encourage people to at least, just have one meetup a month. Maintaining that consistency is important. So it doesn't have to be anything too heavy. It always does depend on, our availability, and as well as the engagement of the people in the area. So, but we always in the guideline, what is expected, what will be provided, and also what the benefits of being affiliated with Black Nonbelievers is. And so the question as to person of color, or i.e. someone white, how can you support Black Nonbelievers in the world? There is a handy little button that says donate.
Mm-hmm.
We are a 501c3 organization. We also have an air photo shirts. Yeah, and which I appreciate. For some people who that they can support our organization by anything we have, any merchandise. You most certainly can, because when you're asked the question of what is Black non-believers, you can sufficiently explain it to them. I encourage everyone to support the organization, even in us, in such as this. And as an organ, we all of our meetings are open to the public, where so everyone is welcome to attend and participate with us. However, it must be understood that the people are, and so the best thing to do is just support, listen to understand, and not just to respond, because people who become very defensive at some of the things we say, and because they're very heavy that we have to discuss are very for us. So if it's heavy for you, just imagine how it feels for us. So that is always the best way. And also just, share our link, share anyone who may, and encourage them to support as well, because this is how we maintain and how we build on our foundation.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to think like, hey, what kind of stuff can I have to support my whatever version of atheist content? Talk to Mandisa, because when you see Mandisa at a conference and she's got the Black non-believer stuff, she's got like beer koozies and t-shirts in like 50 colors. I mean, she doesn't mess around. She's got everything. Yeah, I bought a shirt at a conference and I have it, and sadly it's in the dryer, so I'm wearing my Atlanta United shirt instead. Hey, soccer, whatever. But I did want to emphasize, like, yes, you can support this group. Please do if you can. And also, I attended a Black non-believers meeting in Atlanta, and I was the only white person there. And you know what? I have a feeling that's what every white woman or person of color has experienced at an atheist meeting, being like, oh, I'm the only person like me here. And that can be uncomfortable, but at the same time, it's like, hey, maybe I need to listen to other people for a change. And I had it was a good experience.
You uncomfortable, Zach? No, I'm just kidding. Good.
I'm always glad. Meeting people in person.
Yes, and I find that there are so many of us in the community, etc. Meeting people in person can be very uncomfortable and awkward, because being like those, like black sheep, if you will, we're kind of used to being loners, community, and many of us deal with social anxiety, and this people in create, it certainly can help organizers when you're dealing with payment, because this is something that I think in the whole free speech thing that many people espouse in the community, that there are just some actions that just cannot be tolerated, or that need to be monitored. There are guidelines where are some of the rules and guidelines, and this is some of everyone. And we have to take those into consideration, and which can be very difficult at times, but the more people get used to, or they become aware of the standard that you're setting and the guidelines that you're setting, hey, this will not be tolerated or allowed. And any organizations that could from this type of management. No one ever gets it right all the time. It's constantly a work in progress, and this is what people need to understand, that if you didn't know it behind, but when you act like you still don't know, or when people tell you, and then that's when it becomes a problem. So again, like I said, that is just to reiterate that we want everyone who participate with us to have a really good and meaningful experience, no matter.
Yeah, and I think you have to accept like a certain amount of being uncomfortable, like initially, but you should get to the point where you're comfortable. It's just that at first you have to step out and try something different. So for you, like, so you have the family at home, but you're like a full-time activist now, so you're constantly traveling. What's it like? Like, how long have you been a full-time activist, and what, I mean, are you on the road pretty much all the time? Like, is that a tough thing for you?
I actually I resigned from my job last year in March of 2018. And at that point, I had been traveling since 2015. My travel schedule had increased. It kept increasing within this. So my family was starting to get used to it. They, my boys would start asking me, "Oh, Mom, where are you going now?" And so they gotten to the point where it had become, and plus at work during the day, there were times where they wouldn't see me a days at a time. So once I resigned from my job and took on activism full time, actually I now have with my family, and my travel is relegated still to the weekends. But I actually have more flexibility in my travel, to the point where I don't have to rush to get back home, which is a good thing. And for me, it can be traveling can, it can be a bit daunting, but it's very good, because I actually have been able to, there's to at least 2 or 3 times now, and to continue the work to engage people outside of the Atlanta area as well as in the Atlanta area has been very. This was one of the reasons why I decided to leave. And that part has come, because as the request for appearance increased, able to do so, and I was able to accommodate and meet them according to my schedule now. And so my kids now are able to kind of see they're used to me being active. And so this is just another part of it. It empowers them as well, which is something that I appreciate. Where to now? And did you bring us anything back? That's where my kids are now.
Sounds good. Well, we have gone past the 45-minute mark. It's amazing. This has been a quick talk. Always good to chat with you. So tell people how to kind of find you online, support you, the Black Non-Believers, and of course, Women of Color Beyond Belief, Part 2, Electric Boogaloo, when the next conference may be happening.
I like that. Yes. So, I have to reach my, I think I've reached my friend book, so I might need to do some adjusting there. You can find me on Facebook, Mandisa Latifa Thomas. I'm also on Twitter at Mandisa090. No, Mandy0904. I'm at Man04. I also have a Patreon that absolutely there will be links provided. I also have a Patreon that people can support my activism, help me pay bills too, at patreon.com/Mandisa Latifa. You can find Black Non-Believers at BlackNonbelieversInc, and Women of Color Beyond Belief, WOC, beyondbelief.com. You can support the work of Black Nonbelievers and the conference and on our website for Black Nonbelievers, as well as Women of Color Beyond Belief. There is a conference support link, and especially now that this will be an annual event. We are working on this being an annual event. The financial support is so. I will also drop links to those as well, and pretty much anywhere you Instagram, Twitter, those are the main platforms that we have. You can find me there personally.
Easy to find. Now, as before we call it a night, try to do something light to finish off. As someone who has quite an amazing singing voice, are you a karaoke person, and do you have a go-to tune? You don't have to sing it right now, but you know.
Am I say that again?
Karaoke.
Oh yes! Oh my gosh, that was great. At the Recovering from Religion's fall excursion, I facilitated the karaoke session that was on a Saturday night. That was awesome. And usually when I sing karaoke, I do sing "Ain't No Stopping Us Now," but also when I've sung with Sunday Assembly and at other events, that tends to be our anthem. Ain't No Stopping Us Now. And I actually did a couple of different songs this time for karaoke because I have to like some pop culture things, and I am a 70s/80s baby. For those of you who know, I'm a huge hip hop fan, and so that's something that I am unapologetic about. And I just love music, period. So I'm working on a few new go-tos for like karaoke. Definitely Ain't No Stopping Us Now has become a theme song, not just for myself, but for Black Nonbelievers as an organization, for the movement, for the women of color, for the people of color. So it fits us perfectly.
Yeah, one suggestion for any kind of conference, some kind of karaoke event might not be a bad idea, because it's definitely something that brings people together, and you don't have to worry about whether you're a good singer or not. I know you are, but maybe some aren't. But hey, it's all about getting together and having a good time. And I'm sure you had fun at your conference, even though it was probably a stressful event. But thank you for being on the show, and all links will be provided in the show notes so people can track down. And then once the speakers are available on YouTube, then people can really check it out and go, you know what? I missed out. And next year, I'm not going to miss out. So thank you, Mandisa, for being on the show tonight.
Thank you for inviting me to talk about this very rewarding experience event.
Let me show you.
It's awfully small.
I'd say it's awfully cozy.
That's dilapidated.
Rustic.
That house is on fire.
Motivated seller.
Have you been credibly accused of sexual assault? Did BuzzFeed do a totally unfair and quote-unquote factual takedown of your exploits with women? Did you get removed from your high-profile atheist leadership position because you repeatedly cheated on your wife and lied to women? Fear not, because the Free Thought Prophet is on the case. On the Free Thought Prophet, we don't judge you. In fact, we let you tell your side of the story with no pushback or your money back, because we know that nobody gets silenced like white male atheist leaders. Free Thought Prophet, where due process means never having to say you're sorry. Yeah, I'm not linking to those assholes. I guess wanting a sincere apology from an atheist leader who we should hold to some kind of standard, but that would be too woke, is too much to ask. We owe dear leader our fealty and a 6-figure salary, and I guess a daughter or two. So thanks, Atheist Alliance International. I never gave you a dime and won't start now. If you want to support this show, be like Bobby, Hugh, Teody, Larry, Daryl, the other Daryl, Chris, Freethinker215, Alan Marks. Support the show on Patreon, patreon.com/Zachrilege. I do cat videos, and lately I have trouble getting guests, so I don't even post that often, so it won't even cost you that much. $1 an episode is all it takes. Follow me on Twitter and watch me argue with people. Like my Zachrilege Cast page on Facebook, and send all mail to zachrilege.cast@gmail.com. Thank you to Mandisa for being on this week. All of the speakers at Women of Color Beyond Belief will be available shortly, and I'll link to it. And maybe Atheist Podcast should start having them on their show instead of recycling mediocre leaders and never asking them to be held to account. Until next time, let's continue the conversation.